Hello, BookTube. Recently on a Q&A on this channel, I had a question come up. Someone asked, what are some of your pieces of advice or reminders for college undergraduates? And in the video, when I made my answers, I said that I had so much advice that it would easily make a video of its own, and then promptly forgot about it. And I've had a number of people leave comments and also email me reminding me of that. Quite a few of them are undergraduates themselves or the parents of undergraduates. And so I thought I'd make a whole video of that, even though it's not book related. I thought I'd make a whole video here of 10 reminders and strong pieces of advice for college undergraduates. And first, I want to point out this is mostly for liberal arts people. If you're pre-med or business or something like that, your college experience in many ways is going to be very different from a liberal arts major. And liberal arts majors are what I know. And the second thing I want to point out are my bona fides, which is that I have done this many, 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 many times. I have been offering these pieces of advice or similar pieces of advice to college undergraduates for a very long time. So this advice has been tested. Most of it has been tested for decades, and most of it is derived from personal experience. So well, I'll make it quick. There won't be a long video because it's not book related, so it doesn't feel like it belongs on this channel, but I don't have any other channels. So we're going to run these down going from 10 to number 1. We're going to pause for a minute at the end because the last two pieces are the most important pieces of advice for college undergraduates. So number 10 is a reminder that college as an experience is primarily social and not educational. It's primarily a sense of inner and outer social exploration. So the gist of this piece of advice would be that since that is true, you should probably act that way. So I'm not in any way am I undercutting a strong work ethic or those hours in the library. But let's remember why you're there. Okay, most of what you learn in college in a liberal arts major is going to be utterly worthless to you or wrong. So concentrate on the social part, not to the exclusion of the academic part, but that's the main reason that you're there. And since that's true, that leads us to tip number 9, to point number 9, which is don't live at home if you can possibly avoid it. Take advantage of campus housing, even if you're close. Find a cheap apartment, even if you're close enough not to. I know that in 2019, in the 21st century, the idea that children would ever leave their parents' home, is increasingly strange and anathema. But nevertheless, take my advice. It's a much better idea to start living on your own and make all the usual mistakes and all the usual incredible discoveries. So that would be tip number 9. And tip number 8 is going to be a tough one for young people. Nevertheless, again, like all the rest of these points here, I know whereof I speak, and that is abhor all fads. Don't use them to create your own personality. Don't use them to express your own personality. Fads are just an elaborate waste of money. So we're talking piercings, we're talking clothing, and we're also talking ideological stuff, like safe spaces or trigger warnings. Avoid them all like the plague. Scorn them. They are a total waste of time, and in their most pernicious form, they are a very appealing-looking introduction to groupthink. And the less of you have of that, the better. Your college experience should be teaching you to be yourself, to the beginning of the journey of learning who you are. And it's many steps down the exact opposite road to start learning how to be who everyone else wants you to be or who everyone else is. So no fads of any kind. Wear what you want to wear, do what you want to do, and never, ever coddle yourself. We'll move on to tip number 7, which is to read like crazy. If you are not a reader, become one. Make yourself become one. Learn why so many people that you know love it so much. And if you are a reader, indulge all the time. You are almost never, unless you become a book critic, you're almost never going to have an opportunity like undergraduate college years for long stretches of reading. So read omnivorously and read all the time. Tip number 6 is fairly straightforward, although I'd like to think it's self-evident, but I've seen it ignored enough times for it to make this list, which is, of course, don't adopt any pets. any kind, not fish, not kittens. If your girlfriend or boyfriend gives you a kitten to express their affection, thing number one, turn the kitten over to a no-kill shelter. And thing number two, sit them down for a long talk about how wrong that is. You don't give a living thing as a temporary Hallmark card to someone whose name you're not even going to remember in 25 years. Okay, so and as a college undergraduate, you are going to be moving around from digs to digs. You don't know what opportunities you're going to have, so you adopt a kitten because you think it's fun when you're in your sophomore year, and then later in your sophomore year you get an opportunity to travel to Brussels. You're obviously going to travel to Brussels. What happens to the kitten? No. Just don't do it. Just don't do it at all. You be self-contained. Don't adopt any kind of pet while you're an undergraduate at college. Reminder number 5 is if you find a genuine teacher, grapple them to you with hoops of steel. Now you're going to say, well, aren't I going to be surrounded by teachers if I'm at college? But what I mean is the genuine article, the real thing. Someone who is passionate and who wants to know you and who wants to help you, as opposed to just getting you through a class, no matter how much dedication they use to do that. There's a yawning Grand Canyon of difference between a dedicated teacher and a genuine teacher in life, or someone that is, they might not even be a teacher. But if you find such a person as an undergraduate, grab onto them, because they are extremely rare. The college, paying money for your undergraduate experience in college does not in any way guarantee that you will ever meet ever meet such a person. So do it. And as a side note, since I see this all the time in all of the college undergraduate towns where I have lived, that genuine teacher, I just want to point this out. It's going to sound harsh, but it's true. And watching the pantomime every year really annoys me. That genuine teacher will not be a drunken 70-year-old homeless person on the sidewalk. So don't kneel at their feet and ask them for life lessons. If they're drug-addled enough to give you them, that doesn't mean you should be stupid enough to take them. You don't see college undergraduates, they always do that. And they never realize how insulting it is to both themselves, their genuine teachers, and that homeless person. Just no affectation. Life is not a movie. But if you do find a real teacher, a mentor, or even a guru, a guide through this part of your life, grab onto them. But that leads us to the next one. That leads us to number 4. Since those people are incredibly rare, you probably won't find one. And since you probably won't find one, number 4 is work really hard in the course of your time as an undergraduate to educate yourself. And that's not only books, but movies, all kinds of concerts, long late-night rambling conversations with all kinds of people. Don't embrace your own ideological ossification. Well, I say at any point in life, but definitely don't do it as an undergraduate. If you've got a bunch of people that you like on your dorm floor or in your apartment saying, hey, we're going to a concert for X, your response shouldn't be, I'm not interested in X. No, go. Go. Be omnivorous. Be constantly educating yourself, because most colleges, if you're liberal arts, are really not going to do that good a job of educating you themselves. You have to do that, and you should. You're like with reading vociferously, vigorously, you're never going to have a better chance to do that than in the largely unstructured years of college undergraduate time. So take advantage of it. And another thing to take advantage of, this would be tip number 3, is your college's gym facilities. Might seem out of left field. This whole video is a little bit out of left field. I'll carefully mark it so that those of you who only want book content can just avoid it. But I know there are people out there who want these tips, and I've given them in person to I don't know how many undergraduates. And this next one is take advantage of your college gym facilities. Most colleges will have fairly good or mind-bogglingly excellent gym facilities, and if you are a student, your rate will be non-existent or vanishingly small. Once again, you will almost never get an opportunity like that again. You should take advantage of it. Set time aside. When you launch yourself into the real world, into commutes and jobs, and then later on, a significant other and a family, you're going to find it harder and harder to make time every day for serious exercise. But when you're a college undergraduate, it's easy. Might as well do it. And you'll also really like the friendships, the relationships, the bonding that you'll have over that. will be really valuable to you as a learning experience, even if you're not a gym person and even if you don't upkeep the habits. And that brings us to the last two things, the last two pieces of advice, the last two warnings or instructions that I want to give to college undergraduates. They are by far the most important things, so I wanted to separate them. And number two on the list is a bit of a surprise. It's going to seem surprising to you, and it's a late addition to the list. I only added it a few years ago. But boy, oh boy, have I seen that it is true. So take my word for it. And that is, don't post anything to any kind of social media for the whole of the time that you are an undergraduate. Nothing. Nothing. You can use social media for messaging and stuff like that. You can read it for updates from your family and your friends back home and your loved ones and whatnot. But don't post anything to social media. Take my word for it. It's forever. It's consulted by almost all employers nowadays, and they are idiots. The people who are going to employ you are idiots. They don't understand social media and they don't understand young life at all. So the brainless thing that is obviously brainless that you did and posted about when you were a freshman in college, they're going to hold against you when you're 28 and applying for a job, even though that's insane. That is absolutely stupid. They're still going to do it. And there are all sorts of monsters out there. And they live on social media. And they can glean an enormous amount. I'm probably not going to need to give this piece of advice to anybody who is a college undergraduate now or becoming one, but I wanted to stress it anyway. Don't share your life with social media when you're in college. You are in college in the process of figuring out who you are, what you believe, what you stand for, how you think, who you associate with, what you do with your personal time. You're in the process of figuring that out. Necessarily, the process of figuring that out involves lots of trial and error, and necessarily trial and error involves errors. You don't want a record of your errors on social media to hang around forever. Fine for it to be the fodder of fun conversation that you have with your college friends when you get back together after 10 years. But not out in the world. Not you puking onto the sidewalk or getting arrested or wearing that Halloween costume. Whatever it is, you don't know what the mores of 2035 will be. So just don't do it. Not to mention the fact that social media, the act of interacting with social media is really all-consuming, and that would be a terrible waste of your time as an undergraduate if that was a major part of what you were doing or thinking about. So don't do it at all. If you eliminate it completely, then the card is off the table and you don't have to worry about it. And the last piece of advice that I want to give, usually when college undergraduates ask me in person, do you have any tips or advice? I see you hanging around with college undergraduates. I see that you're still friends with a lot of the people who with college undergraduates who have grown up and are now much older. Do you have any piece of advice for what I should or shouldn't do as an undergraduate? When I don't have the leisure or the opportunity to give a list of 10, I usually give only one piece of advice, and it's this last piece of advice, and I cannot stress it enough, and that is, don't make permanent decisions. Don't make permanent decisions when you are a college undergraduate. You are in flux. You are a creature in composition during those years. That's one of the glorious parts about them. Don't make permanent decisions while that is true. You are not in no position to know one way or another. And almost universally, almost all of the time, any permanent decision that you make in these years, you will regret. So I'm talking about, all kinds of things from, of course, don't get married as an undergraduate. And of course, don't have a child as an undergraduate. Don't procreate as an undergraduate. Don't even think about it. But also, I know this is going against the grain, but when you're a college undergraduate, don't get tattoos. Don't even experiment with it. Don't do it. You don't know what you're going to think when you are a fully formed adult. There'll be plenty of time for you to do all of this stuff when you are a fully formed adult. And it's not condescending or an insult to say that you're not fully formed. Obviously, you're young. You're a college undergraduate. So no tattoos. Also, I know this is kind of hopeless, at least in the Western world, although I think it's everywhere in the world nowadays. which is, of course, don't start smoking. It will consume all of your money, all of your time, all of your attention, and you can't stop. So don't do it. Don't start. The pressure to start in college is going to be enormous. But mainly because that's the reason why the pressure is going to be enormous is the reason why it's probably too late to give this piece of advice, which is that high school students now are addicted. They just lie to pollsters routinely. They split the hair in their own minds. So it's not just tobacco. It's vaping and juuling, or it's the hookah that they can't live without. So, but that seems like it's not just a boring old addiction, but it is. It is. It's all the same thing. It's all smoking. And if you start to do that and you think, well, I'm doing it now because everybody's doing it and it's really cool, and then when college is over, I'll stop. It's no more possible to do that than it is to snap your fingers when college is over and have a tattoo removed. Don't saddle yourself with permanent decisions while you are a teenager, while you are in your early 20s. Don't do that. That's the number one piece of advice. It's not going to make you seem like an outcast, because you're going to be in the process as an undergraduate of finding the right kind of people to be friends with. And the people who would consider you, who would put pressure on you to do something permanent, hey, we're all getting tattoos, what's the matter? Are you afraid? Aren't the people that you want to know or be friends with. So you're in the process of figuring all of that out and figuring out all of those people. That's all you need to do, and you don't need to worry about the verdict of your peers, because there are plenty of peers at college who won't think that verdict is correct. So there you go. That just a quick video. That's 10 pieces of advice for college undergraduates. I said in that Q&A that I would make a video like this, even though it's not book related. So I wanted to do that before it got much longer. But I'll wrap this up for now, and we'll go right back to talking about books. Thank you, BookTube.